Welcome to this week's episode of Tech Shift F9, or TSF9, a weekly podcast dedicated to helping people reinvent their career in the age of technology. I'm your host, Maurizio Raffone. I'm a former banker with 20 plus years of experience in capital markets, structured finance, and derivatives, who a few years ago felt the need to embrace the rapid changes happening in the world of business and began a career journey into tech. I'm currently the CFO for a tech company based in Asia, and I bring you this podcast to draw upon the experience of several amazing guests who've gone through their own career transition and transformation, in all cases strongly shaped by the advent of new, exciting, but sometimes scary technologies. Before we jump into today's interview, I just wanted to share some news that came through recently that were particularly interesting to me. We've had the case of two large companies here in Japan, one being Mizuho, the largest bank, the other one being NTT, the largest telecom company, both publicizing their use of generative artificial intelligence for their own internal processes and or as a consulting tool for their clients, which I thought was amazing because these are very traditional companies here in Japan, somewhat slow to adapt to change compared to lean, smaller, and more agile startups. And so to me, it symbolizes the message that all the hype about AI is actually backed by some tangible actions by even large corporates. Now, let's jump straight into this week's interview. I'm very excited about having today's guest, Ilya Kulyatin, joining us from Singapore. Ilya is a polyglot finance quant, which means he's a number cruncher, for those not familiar with the term, and turned technologist and entrepreneur. Ilya started his career building algorithms for investment firms and hedge funds, and then at a fairly young age, decided he was done with that and wanted to explore the world of cutting-edge technologies such as machine learning, AI, blockchain, and many more. Ilya, welcome to the podcast. I really appreciate you coming on this new podcast and sharing some of your knowledge and experience with our massive audience out there.
Hey, Maurizio, thanks for having me. Really a pleasure having a chat and trying to help anybody who's in a transitioning period.
Fantastic. So, Ilya, you went from a career in finance and investment firms that, frankly, a lot of people would love to have, and then decided to quit and go hardcore into tech and entrepreneurship. And the first question I have to ask is why? What drove you to do that?
Well, I think that the most immediate answer is masochism. But if seriously speaking, I would say since my college years, I've always been looking to start something myself in the future. So I had this objective of, I would like to be a quant hedge fund manager. I would like to launch my own investment firm 10 years down the road. So I had this 10 years objective, specifically in 10 years, I'll review and see how to do this. And that's what I've been doing. I've been just collecting experiences, so I call it collecting the dots to connect the dots. So I've been experiencing quant hedge fund management in New York. I worked in the Netherlands in quant asset management, high frequency trading in Singapore, and so on and so forth. So the objective was always build experience to then transition into an entrepreneurial role. So that's why I switched from a role in high frequency trading that usually tends to be very desirable among quants because it's very highly paid. You really work with lots of smart people. It's really exciting. Tends to be quite stressful though. But I specifically used that experience to transition. So my objective was a long-term transition. It wasn't an overnight decision. It's really something I worked towards during my moves. I've never taken the decision to move between one job to another one, between one product and another one, just for the sake of it, just for the experience. It was always with the long-term objective of getting somewhere. So that's how I got more into let's say an entrepreneurial path. Maybe I can also tell you a little bit how I switched specifically from more of a statistical analyst, quant, to a machine learning engineer, so a much more technical role, let's say. So right now it's becoming more popular, right? Working with machine learning, AI, and so on. So I did that despite lacking background in that. While working on more statistical kind of problems in high frequency trading, what I did is I studied mainly at nights, went back from work on platforms like Coursera. One of the initial courses I did was on a platform by Stanford that doesn't exist anymore, but it was there. And it was a course on the mix between statistics and machine learning. So it was like a good transition for me. It mixed my past experience and added something new that helped me to transition in an easier way. So I did those courses for around, I would say, 8 to 12 months, every night practically. And eventually decided, well, this is something I really like. And I want to do that as my next career. Screw quant hedge fund launching. Let's try to become a machine learning engineer. So that was a change for me, for my long-term objective. And to do that, it also helped that in quant finance, usually when you leave a firm, you have a period that's called gardening leave. So you have some time to do something else, and you still mostly get paid. That was quite helpful. So what I did when I resigned, instead of just sitting around and taking a vacation, I decided to apply for a master's in machine learning in London at UCL, where the DeepMind guys are coming from. So pretty decent machine learning school. And when I got in, I just resigned and moved there. So that was my move towards tech. And it wasn't a smooth move. I was quite lucky to get into that program, but I actually lacked background to do that. So lots of math and physics that I had to know, I didn't know that. So that was, again, another full year of just studying at night while doing that during the day as well, trying to recover at night, whatever I didn't have in terms of my knowledge. So my transitions so far have been always through studies. So you want to do something, you don't know how to do that. You start with the basics, trying to connect your knowledge, your career to something new, and you get there. You get some projects in that, but add new tools, let's say new machine learning tools in this case. So that's how I transitioned towards a machine learning engineering position. And the transition so happened that it was in a startup, and I was employee number 3 in Singapore. It was a mix between my past experience and newly acquired skills. It was a AI for trading systems, that really sparked that interest also in the startup world and entrepreneurship. That's from there I started my own company and then another one, and now I'm again in this new product discovery process where I'm trying to understand new products, new areas, obviously always trying to connect them to my past experience, and then see how to get into that. So I would say I've been lucky enough from the beginning of my career. It's been always a transition, and it continues to be a transition.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you for sharing. Every episode, we're going to have, I don't want to say a theme, but a little bit of a flavor. This week is really going to be about different cool technologies that are coming to the market, have come to the market, things like AI, blockchain, robotics. I mean, you seem to have done pretty much all of them. And I wonder, what prompted you to focus on one specific area of technology versus another? And I guess more broadly, how would you suggest people going about finding the right technology for a potential next career move?
So it's to reconnect with what I just said. For me, it's always about evolution rather than a revolutionary move. So it's a transition from something I know very well to something I know much less, but through a common pattern, let's say. So a connecting link. And that's what I would how it would go about a new technology. For instance, I've worked with blockchain, with crypto, with machine learning, and so on. These seem very hyped topics and so on. But how I got into that? For instance, crypto, I started on the algo trading of crypto side in 2017, way earlier before starting actually a company in the crypto space. And the company that I started was actually very well connected to my past experience. It was a risk management platform for crypto. So it was really not trying to jump on a hype train, but trying to use a new technology where it needed my skills. And the same happened with machine learning. I didn't jump on a hype train. Back in 2015, 16, when I really started getting into this topic, it became more popular because there was what's called the ImageNet moment in, let's say, 2014, where neural nets started having a pretty good performance on image recognition, and but it still wasn't as hyped as it is now. So I would rather avoid trying to jump on something completely new, but try to understand, can I use it in something I've been doing for the past 10, 20 years? Even changing slightly what I've been doing, changing a little bit of the performance, a little bit of the efficiency, and so on. So again, not revolution, but more of an evolutionary move towards something new. So I would never jump just when something just because it's popular. It does help because where it helps, especially in the entrepreneurship space, with something very new with a lot of hype, there is this kind of a market pool where you don't have to push a new technology. You don't have to beg somebody for the money. You don't have to really try to sell this to your future employees and colleagues. There is this natural pool, so it's much easier to get into it, but it's also a risk. So once you get there, you need to deliver. And if you don't do that, then you lose credibility, and you might lose credibility with people you might want to work for the next 10 plus years. So it's really this important, I think, this kind of transitioning, not jumping right on a new train, on a new hype train, but this transition is very, very important. Consider your past to get into your most immediate future, let's say. So again, this really reconnects to the way I'm thinking about career transition, or my career as a continuous transition, continuous evolution.
And so that makes a lot of sense, Ilya. But then I wonder, as you're doing your research before undertaking maybe a more extensive master's degree or evening studies, what are some of the sources of information or pools of information that you found particularly helpful? And again, it could be people, it could be actual publications, or how did you go about making sure that you were filtering out some of the hype about these new technologies, but actually got the right information for you to make that transition feasible?
Yeah, I have this interest in usually researching lots of wide topics and really reading a lot of that. And sometimes it's also a risk because it brings you to the analysis paralysis, right? And because there is so much information, you can never stop. If you try to learn right now about applications of generative AI or blockchain technology in different spaces, you'll never end. So the best thing to do is always to reach out to somebody in the space and to several people and try to understand what is happening there, how it's being applied, and where to learn more. So that's how I did, for instance, when I went for a master's at UCL. I reached out to somebody that I really liked when they were publishing some interesting blog posts, and we just discussed it. And then I got some school names where I could apply and just apply to that one, the one I really liked because it's been recommended by several people. That's what I'm doing right now as well, while researching new ideas. When I come across about somebody that I see as knowledgeable, that is known to be knowledgeable, I just reach out and try to have a chat and continue the conversation. Not always you find people available to give you their time, because obviously everybody's in a different stage of their life. Sometimes you just get them in a really wrong moment, but most of the time people are really happy to help either now or maybe in the future when they'll have more time. So how I do it and how I advise to do that is just to really approach somebody with a particular experience in a certain field, not necessarily something that overlaps with yours, but just and really go explore there, ask questions, have a conversation. So that's the most important thing. And then once you have your questions, once you also understand what kind of questions to ask, that's why you have the conversation with these people, also to not only get the answers, but understand what do you need to know, because not always you know what you don't know. And once you get that, how I do it, I create myself my own study material, and then I just go about that. But it's always around people because yourself, it's never efficient just doing by yourself. Again, it will take you more time. You might waste some time in certain resources or in certain people in certain direction. While if you talk with somebody who's done that, obviously you don't learn from your own mistakes right away, but you can learn from their mistakes. But it somehow helps to avoid wasting time.
I love the human connection element, because hearing you, I can see your structured approach, your highly quantitative, of course, also given your background, but actually you're really putting a lot of effort into building a human relationship with resources that can help you. And I suppose part of that really also is to put yourself out there and offer something back in building those relationships. And something that surprised me in my own career transition was coming from an industry, investment banking, where there isn't a lot of mentorship. It's, figure it out or you're out. Um, to a world of technology where people tend to be much more supportive of one another, even if they don't know each other. Has this been your experience too?
So you mentioned one great point, right? Before going to this, giving something before actually asking for something. So how I go about this research, usually if I have a certain topic, a certain startup idea, a certain product idea I want to research, I set up a document, let's say Notion, and I start researching, adding more people to this document. And very often these people are already working on something in this space. So what I'm trying to do, I'm trying to just really for free, just using my time, help these people either do customer acquisition, either understand a certain product, understand the go-to-market, and so on and so forth. And that obviously helps them, but it helps me a lot as well. So I'm using their experience, the stage where they are right now, to try and learn something new. So this human component and really giving before even asking to get is fundamental, because eventually you'll get something out of out of your conversations, and that's what I've been doing for the past 5 years since starting my first business. It's always trying to start working with somebody and really help them, and that's fundamental, because it gives you certain directions where you can use to learn something new. So for me, that was at least for me, it was very fundamental. And back to your question, if I think about the tech industry and the startup ecosystem in particular, it's much more open than the traditional financial world. It's everybody is very open to collaborate, and also because very few people know what they're doing. Everybody's learning, so it's fundamental to really expand your possibilities by expanding your network and your knowledge through other people. Some industries, some new products, some new technologies might have communities that are even more open. Let's say the crypto community. It just built on this concept of open, of transparency, then everybody's trying to help each other. There are other reasons as well, because they have lots of amateurs there, and it's natural to try to build communities and pull together certain information. But I would say that everybody is very open. And what I found, a lot of people switching from traditional finance into let's say blockchain startups or machine learning startups and technology startups, they really find it very motivating, switching the industries from incumbent financial institutions, let's say, or incumbent even technology institutions, companies, to this new world where everybody's ready to listen, to help, to work on new projects, even just for the sake of learning and figuring out something new. And that's also why I like this kind of startup ecosystem. I would like to continue building businesses or working with people that build businesses, because it's really so much more open than what I used to have in the financial industry.
Ilya, we need to wrap it up. I want to ask you one last question. Do you see yourself making possibly another sort of career, not jump, but transition, as you say, in the next 5 to 10 years down the line? And more importantly, how would you approach that given what you've learned from your experience today?
Yeah, again, that's I see myself in the next 10 years as again a continuous transition. And I would say 10, 20 years down the road, I don't think I would find it difficult to depends, right, at what stage of life you are, right? But I do see myself as transitioning continuously again. Maybe there'll be a solidification period, but then I can't see myself as these, because there are people that don't transition. Let's say Jeff Bezos, he transitioned once from a hedge fund position to a tech entrepreneur, and then he continued there, and he's not transitioning anymore, right? Up until maybe he'll just deal what he's doing right now, right? Charity and investing. I don't see myself getting in that point. So I see myself to trying to get something new up again. So again, this entrepreneurial mentality, let's say.
Well, I do hope that you'll be as successful as Jeff Bezos for sure. Ilya,
Let's
if
hope
people
so.
want, that's great. If people want to find you and read from you, where can they do so?
I hang out on LinkedIn mainly, so that's a place where it's easy to find me. Or alternatively, in startup ecosystems like Tokyo Lunch Club Telegram channel or your fintech channel on Telegram as well. So that's these are usually my places.
Fantastic. Ilya, thank you very much for your time.
My pleasure.
Well, this brings this week's episode to a close. I would like to thank you all for listening to the TechShift F9 podcast, and I wish you a fabulous week ahead. Stay positive, stay cool.